Early concepts of communication over distance. The idea of transmitting sound over a distance has fascinated inventors for centuries. In the 19th century, people used devices like the telegraph to communicate over long distances using electrical signals. However, the dream of transmitting voice through wires became a key goal for many inventors, including Alexander Graham Bell, whose work would eventually lead to the invention of the telephone. The role of Alexander Graham Bell. Alexander Graham Bell is credited with inventing the first practical telephone. Bell was a Scottish-born inventor and scientist who had a deep interest in sound and speech, which drove his research into ways to transmit human voice electrically. In 1875, Bell and his assistant, Thomas Watson, began working on a device that could convert sound vibrations into electrical signals. The first successful telephone call. On March 10, 1876, Bell made history by successfully transmitting the first intelligible telephone call. He famously called his assistant, Thomas Watson, saying, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." This groundbreaking event proved that it was possible to send voice signals through wires, making the telephone a reality. The patent dispute with Elisha Gray. While Bell is often credited with inventing the telephone, there was significant controversy surrounding its invention. Elisha Gray, an American inventor, filed a patent for a similar device on the same day as Bell. This led to a famous legal battle over the patent rights, with Bell ultimately being awarded the patent for the telephone in 1876. Early telephone systems and their challenges. After the telephone's invention, Bell and his associates worked on developing a practical telephone system. Early telephones were bulky and required manual switchboards to connect calls. The initial systems were limited in range, and the sound quality was poor, but they demonstrated the potential for telecommunication on a larger scale. The expansion of telephone networks. By the late 19th century, telephone networks began expanding, particularly in urban areas. The first telephone exchange was established in New Haven, Connecticut, in 1878, allowing people to make direct calls to others without requiring an operator to manually connect the call. Telephone companies began to grow rapidly, and telephone poles became a common sight in cities across the world. The invention of the rotary dial. In the 1890s, a new innovation, the rotary dial, was introduced to simplify the process of making calls. Instead of relying on operators to connect calls, users could now directly dial the number they wanted to reach. This marked a significant step toward making telephones more user-friendly and accessible to the general public. The role of AT&T and Bell system in expanding telephony. In the early 20th century, the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, AT&T winking face, founded by Bell's investors, became the dominant telephone service provider in the United States. The Bell system controlled most telephone infrastructure and played a major role in expanding telephone networks across the country and around the world, providing universal access to telecommunication services. The evolution of the telephone in the 20th century. As technology advanced, so did the telephone. The 20th century saw the introduction of innovations like push-button phones, long-distance calling, and eventually mobile phones. The shift from analog to digital technology in the late 20th century further improved sound quality and connected people across greater distances with even more clarity. The legacy of the telephone and its impact on modern communication. The invention of the telephone revolutionized communication, making it faster and more efficient than ever before. It allowed for instant communication over long distances and played a crucial role in connecting people, businesses, and nations. Today, the telephone has evolved into the smartphone, but its legacy continues to shape how we communicate, making it one of the most influential inventions in history.